submissions. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A very welcome to participants and the presenters. The title for my study is Thinking of Peace, Democracy and Politics of Resource in Ghana, the Paradox of Freedom and Culture of Violence. Madam Chair, why thinking of peace? If you consider the political terrain of Ghana as compared with its neighbors, including Nigeria, Liberia, Mali and Sierra Leone, among others, Ghana could be said to be a safe haven in the conflict sub-endemic continent. Having experienced almost 35 years political somersaults, what some authorities refer to the era of culture of silence, Ghana now is fairly stable. The practice of multi-party democracy, together with the realization of the airwaves, to some degree has given the citizenry the opportunity and the power to participate in matters that affect their interests. More so, the institutionalization of modern political system institutions, such as the courts and then the police, to a large extent, has also promoted rule of law under peace and stability in the country. Regardless of this, a phenomenal growth of politics of insults, which of late has characterized the political environment of Ghana, suggests that indeed most Ghanaians are taking the democratic peace for granted. The media, especially the radio, has been as a platform for political officials to criminalize, scandalous, and a way to belittle their political opponents. The paper therefore sought, among other things, to explore the extent to which politics of insults pose threat to the peace of Ghana. Before I touch on the discussion of the findings, there is the need for us to have a fundamental understanding of the key concepts as underlying the study. First, we are talking about peace. The idea here is not to engage in academic debate because there's a whole lot of issues surrounding peace. It is a contested term, and as Barash and Weber have indicated, even though it's difficult to explain or define what peace is, we tend to recognize it when it is absent. Indeed, in as much as we cannot define what is peace, if peace is lacking, as we are here, nobody will tell you. In some contexts, peace is equated to the absence of violence, and which over the years has been a popular understanding, and pacifists also subscribe to this idea. And from the perspective of Galton, he tells this one as negative peace. In other situations, peace is also connoted that of retributive justice, as pointed out by St. Augustine, that punishment is just for the unjust. The establishment of modern courts and the prisons may sum up this idea. In another instance, peace is also referred to as that of fairness in terms of treatment of people. In this regard, any given society which is segregated or marginalized on the basis of ethnicity, linguistics, and geographical location can be termed as an unjust society. In a more expanded form, peace could be explained as element of safety, welfare, justice, prosperity, and respect for humans as well as that of environment. One thing that we all need to understand is that peace can never be imposed, neither can it also be automatically achieved. It must be planted and nurtured by the people concerned. In this regard, the prophetic pronouncement of Eleanor Roosevelt is critical in this particular issue when he says, it isn't enough to talk about peace, one must believe in it. And it isn't enough to believe in it, one must work in it. By implication, Madam Chair, the idea is that we cannot preach peace whilst at the same time we sow and nurture the seeds of violence. What it means is that if we wish for peace, that kind of wish thinking must be translated in the form of action. Democracy. Indeed, democracy has become so notorious in political discourse in contemporary times, and virtually every political system and regime claim to be democratic. In this regard, it is very important for us to have at least a fundamental working knowledge of what is meant by democracy. From its etymology, that is the root word, the Greek word democrat, as pointed out by Okwe, means people and the that of power. From the original sense, democracy meant physical public gathering by citizens, and that physical gathering excluded women, slaves, and that of foreigners. By implication, democracy, as practiced in the city-state, was not the rule of the people, but rather the rule of the section of the people, even if it was a majority rule. For all purposes and intention, given the growth of societies in modern contemporary times, it is important to know that practically it is not possible for citizens of a given country to meet physically and debate a matter that affect their interests. So on this basis that the explanation of Okwe, democracy, is also relevant in this particular study, when he says that democracy is a system of governance connoting freedom to elect one's own representatives. It's very important that now we talk about representative democracy in the sense that citizens cannot physically meet and also take place in democratic political practices. It's also very important that democracy, first and foremost, recognizes and also respects majority rights as well as that of minority rights. It also, first and foremost, also recognizes the differences that exist in society. And in this regard, one set definition is also very thought-provocative as far as this particular study is concerned. When he indicates that democracy is about electoral processes, it also involves laws and rules governing society. And he also did mention that as in differences exist in society, there is a need for tolerance on the basis of ethnicity, religion, linguistic, and the political affiliation. Wilson concludes that even though democracy may not be a panacea to all social areas, at least essentially associated with achieving lasting success, reducing both poverty and insecurity. Policies of insults. Even though this is a phenomenal growth in the political discourse of most countries, especially in Africa and in Ghana in particular, we have little literature on that. According to the Cambridge Advanced Dictionary, it defines insult as an offensive remark or action or to do something that is rude or offensive. By implication, any verbal expression which is meant to hurt or belittle, criminalize, or scandalous any particular person in this particular regard can be conceptualized as politics of insults. We need to understand that democracy is founded on the principle of mutual respect. In a situation where freedom of speech is used as a weapon to scandalous political opponents or inciting political supporters to act in a violent manner, is a first sign that democracy is at risk, a recipe of chaos and insecurity. Madam Chair, according to the discussion of the funders, it has been found out that politics of insult is quite pervasive in the Ghanaian political system. Outside public officials, including the presidency, is bedecked with indecency and violent pronouncements. Indeed, respect, which is a very fabric of society, is gradually eroding the Ghanaian political system. It is not even wonder when a whole president, a former president by name John Rawlings, referred to his successor president, Adikwu Kufuor, as Ate, who is a notorious armed robber whose name has become a household word in Ghana. It's also not wonder that the ruling National Democratic Congress, NDC, the Secretary General, referring to the founder and also a former president as a backing dog, if not democracy and the ethos of freedom of speech. What can explain this? Just as last year, 2012, in the course of the presidential and parliamentary elections held between 7th and 8th December, the National Patriotic Party, the main opposition party in Ghana, the Secretary General, organized a press conference charging the party supporters to jubilate as its candidate was in the lead. Such pronouncements was considered deadly, given the fact that elections were still ongoing. And also with regard to what happened in Liberia, what happened with regard to Ivory Coast and then Kenya, such pronouncement would have elicited negative behavior from the people. We must all recall that in 2007, when the then Odinga and the Kibaki, all of them declared themselves presidents, that led to mutual crashes. In the same way, the 2010 elections organized in Côte d'Ivoire also saw this kind of crashes between the two parties, Gbagbo and then the current president, Ouattara, in the sense that both of them declared themselves president. The irony of the whole issue is that all the political parties in Ghana were privy to the political code, which mandated the Electoral Commission, the EC, as the sole body responsible for the declaring of the results of elections. Yet, the secretary went ahead and did whatever that he wanted. Madam Chair, the Ghanaian democracy is a paradox presenting both freedom of speech and culture of violence. The institutionalization of modern political party indeed has granted the people the opportunity to partake in matters that affect their interests. However, lack of institution capacity at the same time also to ensure responsibility from the people has now engendered into that of violence. All forms of provocative speech, announcement and others are being peddled on the media, especially the radio, which has become a platform. For instance, between April 8th and the 14th December, 29 indirect expressions were recorded on radio stations across the country by the West Africa Media Foundation, a network which monitors political development in West Africa. And it was found out that the NDC, the ruling government and the main opposition, NPP, were the worst offenders. A call for defense and the rest. It must also be noted that in 2010, the main opposition leader, Nana Akufo-Addo, also called for defense and made a certain pronouncement which has become a major slogan in Ghana, the idea of all die be die. We all recall that the Rwanda genocide was a major contributing factor of the Rwanda genocide was the call for defense by the Hutus against the Tutsis on the radio, and such pronouncement is also considered very dangerous and negative. And the question is, if not because of democracy, founded on the ethos of freedom of speech, what can explain this? And that is why we are saying that the Ghanaian democracy presents both freedom of speech and that of culture of balance. It has been found out that indeed Ghana enjoys some amount of freedom. However, lack of institutional capacity also to ensure responsibility indeed is gradually pushing the country to the state of insecurity. And on that basis, the following recommendations are made. 1. The Electoral Commission of Ghana should legally empower to withdraw the candidates of politicians whose pronouncements are considered seeds of destruction. 2. There should be a regulatory framework that would enable the courts to find leading politicians and their supporters who use abusive words on their political opponents. The media especially should be encouraged to blacklist any politician who uses the media as a platform to abuse any political opponent. In the same vein, any media house found guilty of allowing its media to be used as a platform to scandalous any political opponent should be strongly sanctioned. This demands that the Ghana Media Commission should be empowered to play its role as a monitoring and regulatory body. Politics of insult is a sound democratic decay. In view of this, the national institutions, especially the police and the courts, should be reformed or depoliticized to enable them to play their protection and law enforcement and regulating role to the letter, so as to avoid a situation where people take the law into their own hands. More so, in a pluralistic society like Ghana with different value systems, religious and political affiliations, it is imperative for people to learn, appreciate, respect, and tolerate one another. The National Council for Civic Education, NCCE, and especially leaders of the various religious faiths have to embark on religious education to impress upon the citizenry to learn to live and tolerate one another in such multicultural social system. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you very much, Samuel. Again, that was very good timing. Yes, very good. May I introduce our next speaker, Dr.